Hello and welcome to this edition of the Electronic Cafe. In this episode, Mark and I get to meet the fantastic Isaac Howlett, lead singer, frontman for the brilliant Empathy Test, a band that we've loved for quite a few years. So we're delighted that we managed to get Isaac on to have a chat about the band and the US tour, etc. And he turned out to be another amazing guest. So I really hope you enjoy our conversation, as I say, with the brilliant Isaac Howlett from Empathy Test.
Desert Island disc, if you could only take one bit of vinyl on a desert island, what would it be?
I just imagine like playing a vinyl record on an island.
You get a hi-fi as well. And
okay.
We'll buy a turntable.
and electricity and all that sort of stuff.
And a dust cover. Stop the sand getting in there.
There'll be no stopping once she starts. Eternal burden of the queen of my heart. I wanna be free, but can't let go. She doesn't really know why.
Hey everyone, we are delighted that the frontman of one of our favourite bands we know are loved by you guys out there, Mr. Isaac Howlett from Empathy Test, is here on the Electronic Cafe. Isaac, welcome my friend, it's lovely to have you here.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for inviting me.
Mate, I must say, great to have you on here. And we were talking a little bit before we started this interview and talking about, you know, your tour in the US, etc. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But you've got a pretty big following in Germany, US, UK. Going back to the beginning, how did you guys get together? What was the sort of genesis of you guys forming?
Well, I guess the important thing to explain first of all is that Empathy Test is at its core a duo. When we perform live, there's three of us,
yep.
And one member of that core duo doesn't perform live. So there's a producer member, Adam, and myself, yep. On vocals, and we write the music together. And when we first started, it was me and Adam on stage. The two of us, childhood friends. We've known each other since we were 6 and 8 years old, which sounds like a song in itself. Yeah, we hung out a lot, and you know, as we grew up, we drew comic books together, and we eventually got onto making music, which happens kind of separately at first. And I was kind of writing songs on guitar, and went to university and formed a band there. And Adam went to art college, and he took a slightly different route, got into producing dance music. So it was a while before musically our paths recrossed, yeah. And it took a while before we found a way of working the two things that we did together. Sure. And there was a precursor to Empathy Test, which was pretty bad, I have to say, because we hadn't, like I said, we hadn't quite worked out how to mix what I do and what Adam does together. We recorded something like 7 tracks and did one show, and then decided that it was really crap. And I think we both separately came to the same decision, and one day we both said it to each other, like, so let's just scrap everything that we've done. And a lot of those songs have been remixed basically, and become Empathy Test tracks. In fact, probably almost all of them at this point.
So long,
was later still when we both watched the Drive movie for the first time with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
And we'd been on a night out, and I crashed on Adam's floor, as I often did. And we were just sitting around hungover, talking about what we've been doing recently. And I mentioned that I'd watched this movie and how great it was. Adam was like, oh yeah, same thing. So we were talking about the soundtrack specifically. I really love the Real Hero track from that, College and Electric Youth. And so we were talking about that specifically, and Adam's like, hey, we could make a track like that easy, because it's just kick snare, arpeggiated bass. But synthesizers were something that neither of us had really used. I mean, I'm guessing Adam was probably using samples and synthesized sounds already, but it was the idea to use specifically 80s analog synth samples came from watching that movie, and so we literally did just that. We fired up Adam's computer, sat down, took one of my songs that was kind of half finished, that Adam had always been like, that's your best track, you got to finish that, and me never actually doing it. And we kind of right there and then started making Losing Touch, which will go on to be our biggest track still today. So that was like almost 10 years ago. Like I said, the song itself was half finished. It didn't have that the big kind of chorus vocal that comes in towards the end of the track. And so Adam kind of sent me home with a demo that was just the verse and the hook. And I thought it really needs something else. And I kind of stood there in my bedroom with my microphone, and it, got to the hook, and I just like sang whatever came into my head over the top of the hook, and took it up an octave and really belted it out. And I think that kind of was what the track needed, just to finish it off.
It's always been you. It's always been you. When you're feeling alone and you're colder than stone, call me,
For the rest of that year, we kind of put together 3 more tracks to create an EP, which we then released, self-released using TuneCore at the time, which was like, you just paid a small fee and they put it in all of the stores. And I don't know, I mean, there was no real preconceptions about where this project was going to go, how popular it was going to be, or anything. Obviously, me as a kind of wannabe performer was hoping that it would go far, but we had no real idea. And somehow it just got picked up by a load of people that kind of were able to help us build a career.
It sounds like you're describing me and Andy's relationship. I mean, we grew up together. I was 3, Andy was a couple of years older. We grew up, Andy was into his art. We did bands together. So, I mean, there's a lot of parallels there. So, I mean, you mentioned that obviously the Drive soundtrack, very electronic. It was a moment. What was your early inspirations? I mean, you said you played guitar. Was electronic music, on your radar, or was you kind of like guitar inspired back in the day?
It was a bit of both. My mum was really into acoustic, like folk singers, like Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and Neil Young and Van Morrison. So that was my kind of first introduction to music. And then my stepdad came along, and it was really him who sort of gave me an introduction to 80s music, like The Cure and New Order and Joy Division and the Smiths. But yeah, I mean, guitars were always kind of my thing. So yeah, like but it was Oasis. I'm embarrassed to admit. It was Oasis that kind of really made me think that actually anyone could pick up a guitar and form a band. And because their songs were so simple, and it was kind of like acoustic guitar based as well. You know, you could write the songs on acoustic guitar. So, and even to this day, that's still how I tend to write songs. And I find that way you kind of really, I mean, obviously if I played piano, then I'd write them on the piano, but it was guitar that I picked up. So I find that if you can make a song work and sound good, just a voice and an acoustic guitar, then you've kind of got a strong base in order to build everything on. So I tend to write a song in that manner, and then record a demo of it, just voice and guitar, and then send it to Adam, who kind of starts building a track around it.
That pushed me always down this one-way street. You know I love you, all I need is time. What's yours is yours, and what's mine is mine. And I know that we will always be friends. And I know that we will always be friends.
I mean, you talked about losing touch. I mean, yeah, that's, say, your biggest single. I mean, it's 6 million streams on Spotify. But there's some guy called Richard Swarbrick. I think he's a visualizer. Didn't he put your track on like a Liverpool football video? And he's obviously a big fan of you, because I think he's used other tracks of yours to spread the word in the US on other videos. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Richard was, funnily enough, someone that we met in a pub, which I know is often how these things happen. Yeah. Just before we started Empathy Test, I was working in a pub, and he was one of the regulars in there. He lived down the road, and I can't tell you how it actually came about. I guess he told us what he did, which was visual, animated art, basically. Had this very specific style of kind of watercolor, animated watercolor. So, which I think has been used a lot and stolen by many other people since. But it was a really good way of kind of showing movement, and it lent itself very well to sport, which he was really into. He loved his football. And I don't know, at some point we must have just played him this music that we were working on very, very early on, you know, before it was even released. And he really liked it. And there was also another person involved who was a sales guy, you know, who was like putting us together and being like, you know, this could really work. Yeah, but when we finished Losing Touch, he wanted to use it in this video which he'd made for Liverpool Football Club. I mean, he hadn't made it for them. It's this idea of you create something and then put it out there and it gets picked up by the people it's supposed to. So obviously, I think he made it with a view to Liverpool winning the season, and then that didn't happen. But he still released it as a kind of compensation kind of video, right? I'm not that into football, so I didn't really know what was going on, but I was just like, great, yeah, you use it. And we really didn't know how much of an impact it would have, but it went viral, and a lot of people really liked the song. So when it went live, I was literally sitting there checking every day all of the comments, and every time, so because people are incredibly lazy on the internet and on YouTube, and so instead of like checking the description where it says the name of the song, it's always like, what song? So I just sat there and answered everyone that said, what's this song? Empathy test, check us out. That worked really well for us, and it worked really well for Richard as well. So he immediately made another video, and it was like, what will go viral next? Cats. So he did this Cats of YouTube one, and he used Kira, which was the second track that we made, and that went viral too, and did the same thing.
You know that I'm happy, staring into yours. Light another cigarette now, honey. Mix another snake bite and black. We've only a short while here to be ourselves.
And then he was like, okay, winning formula here. And by that point, he was then being asked to make videos specifically. So it was the NBA finals in the US, and he made a series of videos, and they were kind of as the NBA's progressed, he was making animations of specific moments that happened, and he was using Last Night on Earth for that, and so then we started getting even more attention in America, and we were just really lucky to have a lot of things like that kind of fall into our lap, and there was a lot of kind of stars aligning with the whole project. Not that there wasn't a lot of hard work going on as well, because that got us in touch with Mark Roberts, who had his own small label in Brooklyn, New York, which we were obviously really excited about when he was interested, and he released our second EP, and I learned a lot about how to release something. And then when he was inspired by what we were achieving to start making his own music again, and was like, no, I don't really have time to be your label manager anymore, I just basically took over, and we sort of continued doing it ourselves.
I was reading it. I like the way you conduct your business. Like, I think you've crowdfunded all 3 albums so far. Is that right? It's so nice that you're doing it for you, instead of, no disrespect to record labels, but you will know the stories where you end up getting 5% and the record label says thanks very much.
The record industry's moved on massively in the last 10 years, 15 years. I mean, for bands, that they have to become a real cottage industry. You record it yourself, you release it yourself, you publicize it yourself. More often than not, you don't get advances like back in the old day. And I think that you guys, you realizing that 10 years ago, and crowdfunding and getting the albums, the money for the albums there and then, was a real coup.
I think it was kind of a transitionary period that we kind of dropped into, because when we first started, it was my dream was to get a record deal. That was like the holy grail that everyone was after. but yeah, but Empathy Test really turned into this DIY thing, and I sort of changed my philosophy as well, from like chasing something or waiting for something to come to me, and realizing that in the end I had to do the opposite and take the music to the people. It sounds lofty, but literally, you know, you can, I think a lot of people make some music, put it on the internet, and think that their job's done and that people are going to miraculously find them and listen to their music. But actually, you have to put in some hard graft and really, you know, put the music in front of people and say like, hey, you might like this. And if they do, then great. If they don't, then move on. And I kind of applied that to everything in the end, because then it was like, okay, well, we've released some music. Now we want to do a tour. We need a booking agency. And there was lots of kind of chicken and egg situations. Like immediately, because of the success of Losing Touch, we had X-Ray Touring were interested in us, huge booking agency. But as soon as they found out that we didn't have a record label or a manager, they disappeared. And I was sending them emails for 6 months or something. In the end, I gave up because it was clear that they weren't going to come to one of our gigs. It was just like, yeah, come back when you've got management and or a label. And I was like, well, we don't have those things. So in the end, this band Vivian Glass, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, but we did a show with them, and they were very much like into you know, doing things their own way as well. And we just hatched the plan to book our own UK tour. And they were the ones that were like, let's crowdfund it, which kind of then gave me the idea later. I mean, crowdfunding suddenly became a big thing at the time. We just booked our own venues, and you know, there's plenty of small venues that you can hire for just the cost of the mixing engineer.
You can walk away empty-handed. You can walk away empty-handed.
But yeah, we just got out there and did it. And then it's kind of, once people see you doing it yourself and having some success, then they're more likely to want to get involved, especially if they're, you know, business people like booking agents or whatever. Yeah, it took a while, but eventually, a booking agent in Germany, Jan Winterfeld and Plusvelt, who's still our booking agent now, came on board and started booking us in Germany.
It's the same with us, Andy, though, wasn't it? I mean, when me and Andy have been in bands years, and we had quite a lot of success. I mean, you know, our big utopia was to get signed by a record label. You know, as a 17, 18, 20-year-old, that was
with hair.
But looking back now, I'm so glad that, you know, it's very rare that you sign to a record label and you have any sort of success out of it. I mean, so many record labels, you know, Rusty Egan, a friend of ours, he's just so adamant that you've got to keep control of everything yourself, own your copyrights, own your publishing, own those sort of things, because, you know, record companies sign you for a few albums, don't do anything with you, just disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it is so refreshing that bands have got a good business plan like yourselves, and you've got full control over it. You've got your fingers on the whole, every aspect of it, and it's working for you.
There's kind of like pros and cons, which I've started to realize. I mean, the more successful you get, the harder it is to do everything yourself. It becomes a bit overwhelming, is the problem. So I mean, the great thing is, like you said, as an up and coming band, you can get out there, you can sell your music, and you don't really need a record label at the beginning, I think. But there are, particularly in the UK, a lot of doors that kind of remain closed if you don't have a manager and you don't have a booking agency based there and a record label, because they kind of have a lot of things all sewn up. You know, like
you're tapping into like their marketing, their networks, their everything. I mean, that's what they can give you.
That's
but
what
the actual music part of it, you want sort of like a total artistic control.
Yeah, it's very difficult to get on festival bills in the UK without having that network. You know, if I once saw a graphic that was like the Reading and Leeds lineup reduced to the booking agencies or the management companies behind the artists, and it was, you know, virtually all 1, 2, 3 different agencies. And of course, the way it works is that you're on a record label or booking agency, they want to book New Order, and you're like, as a booking agent, you're like, you can have them for this amount of money, plus you've got to put these 6 smaller bands that no one's heard of like at the bottom of the bill. And that's kind of how we got on in the alternative scene, or alternative electronic scene in Germany. We've worked our way up through the festival lineups because of Jan and his contacts. But we've never really had the same thing in the UK. I mean, what we've managed to do now is get distribution, which was becoming the problem, especially after Brexit and me moving to Europe, because I used to send out all of our merchandise myself, but the people in America had to pay £20 shipping or whatever, and you know, even the people in Europe complained a bit. So distribution is something that at some point becomes necessary. Obviously digital distribution is easy, but the physical stuff, the vinyl and the CD. So we've just signed a distribution deal, but it's as an independent artist. Normally there's a record label in the middle. But if you can get distribution, it does mean that you're getting a lot less money per unit as you were when you were doing it yourself. But it means it gets to more people, the shipping costs are reduced, and it's something that gets taken off your plate at the point where it becomes too big. It's great being an independent artist and being able to do everything yourself. Downside is you do have to do everything yourself. So
and I find myself thinking how much easier it would be if you and me were side.
I mean, the main thing that happens now, and this is a really sneaky thing that I learned, is that record labels will buy up the competition. So, you know, things very much now, someone comes along and does something new, and then suddenly there's 20, 30 other artists doing exactly the same thing. And record labels are, you know, signing up everyone to be, you know, another artist like that artist, because suddenly everyone's, you know, the listeners are, I want more of this. But record labels will buy up the competition, so they'll have their artist, and then they'll sign up all of the people that they can find on the internet that sound like them or doing a similar thing, and they will basically pretend that they're going to do something with them, but they have no intention of doing that at all. It's literally just to keep them off the market. And another thing that happens is that the record label will pay for an artist to record their album. the album becomes the property of the record label. Then the record label decides that actually that fad is over, or that, you know, that moment is gone.
Yeah. And
then they won't release the album. The artist can't release it either because it doesn't belong to them. So their career is just completely destroyed by the record label deciding that they don't want to release their album. And you'll get some people manage to buy their album off of the record label and release it themselves.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, just like whole careers are kind of
ruined.
Ruined, yeah.
We know an example of, well, 20 years ago, of a record company signing a completing artist. We know, I'll tell you the names and details afterwards, but we know it happened. It happened. They were competition to another band. They were signed, and they signed them, and they recorded their album, shelved it, didn't do anything with them.
I'm much happier, mate. I mean, your first two albums got what, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 reviews, legendary status comments. So for me, seeing all that, your hard work, and hearing that story, it must have been so, well, even now, it must be so gratifying. I think you said a lot of hard work, but it's all paying off. And
the best thing for me, and is a dream of mine that I've basically managed to achieve, is that if you're managing yourself, you're handling your own finances, so you're not overreaching, you're not spending money that you don't have. Yeah. So you can kind of create a solid financial base and go full time with it, which is what I've managed to do. The people that I perform with are essentially session musicians, so we pay them per show, which is why there's been quite a lot of different lineups and people coming and going, because people come along, they do it until something better comes along, something more higher paid, or they've just had enough of touring or whatever, and on they go. But it's meant that I've been able to basically do it as a job. And but then it's really like the kind of next step after that. It's like, how do we increase our reach? How do we get to a bigger audience? And at a certain point, you do find yourself going, well, maybe this is the point at which a record label might be able to help, or at least take some of the workload off, so that I can kind of focus on writing new music.
So that's it for another episode of Electronic Cafe. I hope you enjoyed our chat, as I say, with the brilliant Isaac Howlett from Empathy Test. Isaac, thank you so much, mate. Absolute honour to have you on the show. Really enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you sometime early in the new year, I hope. And good luck with the US tour, my friend. Right, before I go, March the 16th, 2024, Electronic Cafe Live Volume 2 is coming. What a lineup we've got. We've got Peter Dugal, we've got Tiny Magnetic Pets, we have the incredible Wolfgang Fleur. Yes, the Wolfgang Fleur. And if that wasn't all enough, an amazing DJ set by the fabulous Mr. Mark Reeder, coming all the way from Berlin to make your ears happy. And I've just seen some amazing footage of Mark at the moment DJing for the incredible New Order, opening up for those guys all around Europe. And he's DJing at our event. I mean, come on, get your tickets, Mark. Buddy, if you can put a link down below, as per usual. And Mark and I look forward to seeing you guys at that event. And of course, on the next edition of the Electronic Cafe. Stay safe. Bye-bye for now.